Shoot. Well, welcome back, friends. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Tales from the Slide Deck.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
I feel like I'm doing my NPR voice here. With me is my co-host. We have Taylor.
I'm the pretty one.
And we also have Tejas Zach.
That make me the muscle then, didn't it?
Yep. It's another me episode, so...
Who are you?
I'm Ryan.
Oh!
I'm Ryan. I'm neither the pretty one or whatever Zach said.
He's the brains.
I'm the muscle. You're the brains.
You're the muscle. I guess I'm the brains. I'm the brains today because I'm bringing this episode to you, boyos. And oh boy, we're doing it again. We're doing History Channel dad shit.
Okay.
Only because of the reception I got from both of you last time that we did something like this.
Technically, everything we do is in history.
Yeah, technically everything we do, but this is definitely like I could imagine a 30 minutes History Channel special on this story. But yeah, this episode, this is a story that I've known for a while, but did not do any sort of deep research on it until I was looking up stuff for my A-Bomb episode. Because the end of the Pacific Theater was kind of interesting. Like so much intricate shit happens that's not fighting in those like last few weeks. You know, especially your days between the bomb.
After the European front shut down.
Yeah. So I started looking what kind of weird shit happened in like the final moments of like the European theater. So without further ado, I bring you the last siege of Castle Itter.
All right, it is Itter.
Which my dyslexia, just the way my brain reads things. You guys know I'm not really good at reading.
Yeah, me either.
The last siege of Cassie Hitler was what I saw.
Cassie Hitler.
Cassie Hitler.
I was like, where are we
That's
going?
a young adult. Yeah, I don't want to read that young adult novel.
That's an interesting one. My stupid brain somehow just like edited out like 5 letters and just said the last siege of cat litter.
Ah. Oh.
Look at us, boys. Look at us.
Look at
a couple
us.
high school graduates.
We're not getting any younger, boyos.
The last generation where they didn't really diagnose learning disabilities.
Oh, so
you can't even misread things anymore. God, kids these days.
Fucking woke agenda.
Kid woke got your dyslexia.
Expecting people to read. So yeah, I want to ask you all before we jump into the next slide. Like, what's a siege?
Oh,
like,
that's that.
You know,
that's that Tom Clancy game, right?
Oh yeah, that's Rainbow Six Siege. Yeah.
That's the popular one. That's the one that all the big Twitch streamers play. That's
and if I could sneak one more joke in too, really quick, because I just thought of it. Siege is actually a really good nickname for people named CJ.
Oh, ooh, that is. Go Siege. But yeah, Siege, typically, they still happen in modern days because if you have any sort of fortified location, you're basically, you have the defense as an advantage against somebody who's trying to attack you. So, I mean...
You just surround someone and you do a war of attrition where,
we can starve them out.
We can't get any food.
Yeah, we're going to cut off any access to this town, building, what have you. I mean, it even happens with like raids cops do. Could be considered a siege and all that.
Yeah, no, there was the siege over in Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
And the siege at Waco, effectively,
Oh, of course. I mean, famous ones all throughout history, like the siege of Alesia, where Julius Caesar, Julius Epilepsy. Wow, we're off to a great start.
Another woke.
Teaching me to read.
History.
I don't want to read. No, Julius Caesar came across like a Gaul town,
in France.
Yeah, it's we used to call the French Gauls.
I call them gals now.
Yeah, gals. But no, like Julius Caesar made a wall around this French city.
Really?
Essentially, they're like, oh, you're gonna wall us out? Like, we're gonna also wall you out if you try to escape your city.
That is one way to do it.
The siege of Tyre, I think, Greek siege. Alexander the Great did this one where there was like a heavily fortified island a mile off the coast.
Wouldn't that theoretically be a blockade then if you're using ships?
Well, he wasn't using ships at the time. He had his ships doing other things, but he's like, we've effectively we have enough presence on the coast, and they don't have any ships. So like we're going to make sure that like nobody sneaks ships to them, but at the same time like we're starving them off from the port that they would be getting a bunch of stuff. And that lasted about a year, and Alexander the Great's army ended up making a bridge to this island, just like a mile-long, like, pontoon bridge to eventually break that. A whole bunch of sieges throughout history, even in World War II, Leningrad.
I mean, it was a lot of, like, that was warfare for a long period of time. Is like, well, we'll hold up in this castle.
Yeah. How do you defeat a city or a castle or something like that? And that's, you surround it, you starve it off, and hopefully the people inside get just tired enough that somebody unlocks the door and just, okay, we're raising the white flag, we're putting down our arms.
It's how Genghis Khan defeated the Great Wall of China.
Yeah.
He didn't just go around it.
They had that big old wall to hold him down, but inevitably they just kind of found someone who, like, I believe... They
paid off.
It's a seduction story as well.
I think there's so many romanticized versions of that, and then we also have to take into consideration that it wasn't just he got through the wall once; it was multiple. It was multiple times, and you know, as well as his descendants like Kublai Khan and all that, who eventually reconquered China.
Kublai Khan, Shaka Khan, all of them.
Yeah, all the Khans.
Tony Khan,
Noah Khan,
Khan Noonien Singh.
There you
whatever
go.
His name is.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Wrath
the Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, there we go.
That one. But yeah, the siege we are talking about today is would be in the footnotes of siege history. It's not an important siege. It's not one that has over 1 million deaths or one that lasted a few years. This is a siege that lasts for the majority of a day. And many of these sieges of history that we've mentioned in here, we've talked about them from the attacker side. This is one we're going to be focusing primarily from the people within the walls of Castle Itter. But to set the stage for this siege, this is happening in the tail end of
WW2.
Iwo Jima.
We're going back to WW2, boyos, but so WW2, as much as I would love to go through a long history.
What was that about?
What was that? Well, you see, somebody got kicked out of art school and decided, I want half of Poland. And somebody else grew a mustache and went, I want half of Poland. And then they, and when they liked each other real much, they had a baby. And that baby was called a conflict that killed like 1/6 of the people in the world. And got everybody involved. A world war, if you will.
Whoa, the whole
and not
world
the
was
first,
involved.
a second one. But yeah, our story takes place during the final week before Germany surrenders in the European theater. On April 30th, Hitler, our Austrian painter that we mentioned, he does the one good thing in his life, and that's killing Hitler.
If you believe that.
It was the Russians that reported that, so you never know.
That's
what I'm
how we
saying,
know that it was a lie. It was communists.
I feel like a Russian would have taken credit.
Also, I feel a Soyuz welling up in my chest looking at that image on the left.
There is an interesting 6-day period. 7 day. There's an interesting 7-day period after Hitler is found dead from a gunshot wound until Germany surrenders, and it's a time of scrambling already after months of scrambling because Germany has effectively known that they can only stall out the end of this war. They're not in any position to win it, to take back any lands. Their manufacturing's gone absolutely kaput. They're sending
clever.
They're sending all of their scientists and like military brass.
Heisenberg's trying to build a nuke in a cave right now.
Yeah.
At this point in the war,
trying to Iron Man the nuke.
Yes, in a cave with a bunch of scraps. But speaking of these caves, we need to talk about where our story itself
we are moving
takes
along
place.
here.
We are moving along. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this, but we don't have a lot of time to spend on World War II. We have a lot of time for jokes, but I don't have there's not a lot of ground to cover it. You just go watch any fucking documentary on it.
I love a good war map. You got yourself.
I know
you got
do.
yourself the Patton. You got yourself a Munich on there. No Saddam Hussein hidden in the graph, but
not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. Actually, not in this slideshow. I forgot him again.
That's all right.
I could tease.
You can always add him.
I can always throw one in later. But for the final months leading up until May 8th, when Germany officially declares surrender, we see that the U.S. troops are basically, and we don't have a big wide world map to show you, but it's like a third of Germany is gone within 2 weeks. We are just plowing through. You have German troops and brass and everyone retreating backwards into Austria and Czechoslovakia and northern Italy in what they called the Alpine Fortress, which was just sort of like early on in the war, they're like, let's build a bunch of bunkers. That's where we're going to send our government lead. If things go shitty in Berlin, this is where we're sending everybody. But I don't think even the Germans at the time didn't anticipate, like, oh, if things start going bad in Berlin, we only have, like, we have 15 days to essentially, like, regroup and figure that out.
I mean, the one thing the Nazis did have going for them, even at this point in the war, was a surplus of just absolutely majestic scenery, mountain castles.
Oh, yeah. You have tons of mountain castles, mostly in the south, in mountainous Germany. But our story takes place in what I like to call, and I know it's not formal, we're going to call it the panhandle of Austria.
Fair enough.
This little jut that essentially stops Germany from bordering Italy directly. It's not very wide. I think at its widest point, it's only about 50, 60 miles.
Oh, shit.
So you can drive through it in like an hour.
Yeah. And even then, I mean, you're never as the crow flies because you are in mountainous regions here. So it's like, even if even if you aren't dealing with like, the Italian Alps and shit like that.
You're in Alpine country.
You are getting into Alpine country, but you're also getting into areas that we would all know, like Highway 20, where you just kind of have river valleys that just wind, and you're just winding along through. And yeah, you're going up in elevation, but it's not like going through a Stevens Pass or something like that.
Nice.
Difficult area to kind of traverse, and most of the area is mountainous. And as we can see down here in our bottom right picture, with gonna give you a hint. That's our boy. That's a Castle Itter.
What?
It's tiny.
Yeah, I mean, most castles are pretty fucking...
Most castles are tiny, but this is like basically a 3-story barn made out of stone.
Oh, shit, really? It's kind of hollow
it's
inside?
Tiny. It's a little bit hollow inside, but it's not a fancy boy.
Americans have a pretty fundamental, like... misunderstanding of castles.
Oh, we imagine
Disney.
Disney and the Harry Potters didn't help as well, because what's a castle? Oh, it's a Hogwarts with like a 200-foot spire and
it's this massive
great
fucking
halls,
structure.
and it's like, oh no, castles were hard to make and harder to maintain. And
you think
they're small.
Every castle is Buckingham Palace.
Yeah.
When it was just a McMansion, an old world McMansion.
This is like the Rambler equivalent of a realistic, McMansion castle. So Itter Castle is located in this panhandle, only about 10 miles from the German border. It was used mostly as a prison, as sort of an additional space for prisoners that wasn't one of the concentration camps. I believe Dachau, which was a few miles away in German territory. But Itter was sort of just, I believe it was sold, after Austria was annexed by Germany, I believe it was sold to the German government shortly after, because somebody was just like, well, okay, this thing's a piece of shit. It's old. It's been around since about the year 1200.
Yeah. That's actually one of the fun things. If you go to the UK, you can get a screaming fucking deal on a castle.
Yeah.
Even to this day,
Can
in
you really?
2024, you can get a castle for like rent prices, like on a 1-bedroom apartment, because of the fact that like you can't do anything to modify it, and the cost of upkeep on a castle is fucking insane.
It's like a boat that you can't really repair too well. You can't change anything about the boat.
Because the boat's historic.
Yes.
So you can't change a thing about it. So yeah, even to this day, castles are just kind of a burden.
Yes.
And I guess it was also the case, less than 100 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, when was this castle built?
This castle, the first time we see historically any sort of land deed for the small township of Itter, which is only like we're talking less than a quarter mile from the main entrance of the castle down here. I believe 1200, could be 1300.
Really?
And then there was some structure, some sort of something that they would call a castle, which would probably only be less than a quarter of what this is. Shortly after, it's been held by like archbishops and certain barons in the area. It was never like a seat of government. And because it's in this weird panhandle area of Austria, it's moving between like southern Germany, which was Bavaria at times, and unified that way, to Italy. It's changed what country it's in many, many different times. And being part of Austria,
it preceded countries, right? It was around way before just territories were drawn up of that area, right?
Oh, there was countries at that time.
But the lines on the map change, where it's like, we don't have a Holy Roman Emperor anymore, and like, we have an ununified Germany that's like 80 different smaller city-states and, baronships and counties.
Roman castles is a weird idea.
What?
Roman castles? Like Romans conquering
Well,
places that had castles in it?
This is about 700 years after the Romans.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess like buildings like this aren't that uncommon in Europe. Like when I got to like the privilege of traveling to Ireland, there's the Brazen Head pub in Dublin, which has been I think it's the oldest continually operating pub in Dublin.
Gotcha.
And it's been around since the 1200s.
Wow.
So it's very like the American mind can barely conceive of something that's been around
and
3 times as long.
The West Coast American mind.
Oh my
gosh, going back east, when you're just kind of like, holy shit, everything's like there's like some like ancient piece of history, old house, old building, old like, even when you get into like the Southwest, when you get those like Mormon forts, like Northwest, like everything that's here has been put up in the past 200 years.
Washington's only been officially a state for 134 years.
Yeah.
So crazy. That's what's weird about being down here in Texas, man, is like there's a lot of representation of stuff we've learned about in history and things that have along. There's a huge amount of native culture here that just precedes the country and everything. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating place to learn.
You can see all 6 flags.
You can see all of them.
I mean, I'm a little bit jealous because I'm as a fan of history, I like being able like, I can go visit all these historical places, and where we live, that's there are some, but it's few and far between compared to at least the rest of the U.S., let alone going back to like Europe or anywhere like that.
There's just not a lot of changes.
Yeah.
It's like
Japan was a trip because you'd see a Circle K, and then in the alley of the Circle K, that's a shrine that's been there for 800 years, and then another, right next to it's a karaoke bar that was made like looking like 10 years ago, and it's just like, oh wow, well, look at this patchwork of history we have going on here. But yeah, as we enter our story into the final years of World War II, Castle Itter is a prison run by the SS for high-ranking French officials.
It looks beautiful. It looks beautiful. Like this looks like not the worst place to be imprisoned, right?
Not the worst place to be imprisoned. It is where they kept like VIP prisoners. So I mean, if we're not going to talk about the camps too much, but if we are going to compare, it is night and fucking day compared to any sort of concentration camp, labor camp, work camp. That being said, there aren't just French officials here. We're just going to scoot along to the next slide for a better picture of this castle.
This was like a Halo map.
Yeah, this is like a Counter-Strike map or a Halo map. Mm-hmm. It's just small and tight enough. There are also like from the Eastern Front prisoners of war from like your Yugoslavia, your Greece, Serbia, as well as, you know, they're not shipping just like Joe, you know, they're not shipping Igor, who they caught with the rest of his troops. They're basically they were scouting
the
out
top
like
of the litter.
They're trying to pick the top of the litter and like, okay, who can do electrical repairs?
Gotcha.
Who can cook? Who can
fix this fucking castle?
Yeah, who can fix an automobile? Who can fix this really shitty castle that's really tiny?
Who's a stonemason?
Who's a good cook? Like who do we want around that's a good time to cook? You know,
who have we heard's a good cook? Well, we'll take what is his name? His name's like I believe there's a Shukovic and there's an Andreas.
I believe his last name was Fieri. Like a Guy Fieri.
Guy Fieri. Welcome back to prisons.
He was French.
Prisons,
soup
porridge, and pea soup.
And just a bunch of fucking Nazis.
He was a French Italian, so it was Guy Fieri.
But yeah, before we should get into it, I really want to state, like, going through this story, in the mind's eye, I saw the Death of Stalin version of this story. I saw the comedy movie version, the Wes Anderson version of this story. And while we don't have any characters yet, we are going to get right into it with some of the French VIPs because there's a lot of fun characters at play here.
At this point in the war, too, they would have been there for a minute, or they've been moved around.
These people have been moved around because France fell in 1940.
Yeah. So this is what, like 5?
This is
after?
Yeah. This is about 5 years after. 4.5. If we want to round up. But yeah, they've been moved around to different prisons, different high-profile prisons, and almost everybody who's a prisoner here has been here for maybe about a year or two. As things started going south on the Eastern Front and Western Front for Germany, they kind of moved these high-profile prisoners down here to Austria. But let's get in. Let's see who of our goobers are, and maybe we can fan cast some of these sons of bitches.
I love a good fan casting.
So we have our 4 big guys.
Richard Kind on the left.
Who the fuck's Richard Kind?
He's a comedian. He's like a character comedian who's been in a lot of different shit. Very hard for me to like extrapolate something like just out of my ass. I think he was in like the show Mad About You from the 90s.
He was the voice of one of the grasshoppers in A Bug's Life, if that helps you.
There you go.
Oh,
yeah.
was he the not Kevin Spacey grasshopper?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was the comic relief.
He was the comic relief grasshopper. Okay, I know the voice that you're talking about.
But no, that man looks just like Richard Kind.
That is Edouard Daladier. He was the French prime minister for about 4 years before war broke out. And I believe he stepped down or was replaced about like 2 months before France fully fell to the Nazis.
Because he was just like, let's just let him in.
Well, he wasn't like that. I believe heavily criticized for like, you ran this country poorly to get us into this spot. We're going to try new leadership. And that new leadership, also at the prison with him, right next to him, is Paul Reynaud, who ran the country for 4 months before getting captured.
It's like he got you in the same spot, you know?
All
roads lead to this prison.
I just like to think of these two where just you have this bittering odd couple of just kind of like, you fucked this country up for what you did. Oh, I couldn't have fucked it up. I was in 4 months of shit.
I inherited the mess. You left me. You fucked me over.
Yeah, basically.
I'm trying to think of who to fan cast.
Oh, that's Circus. That's gonna be Circus, right?
This is gonna be clumsy as fuck. But the actor who played Mike on Breaking Bad.
Oh,
if you put a toupee on him and shaved him.
Yeah, if you just shaved him and threw some of that on there, he could be a good comedic actor.
I was gonna go for a reach here, guys. Like in a resurgence of his career to define him in a new way. Jackie Chan.
Let's do it. Let's go, boys.
Jackie Chan playing a
Jackie
French
Chan.
presidente.
We're gonna French face Taylor.
We're gonna baguette face him.
Oh no! And we also have a similar situation with our two boyos on the right. We have his name's Maxim Weygard.
Okay.
French military commander who stepped up in the final months before France lost the war. Stepped up because of his predecessor's perceived incompetence, and this guy is Maurice Gamelin, who was a French general and military commander from almost end of World War I all the way up until World War II.
Yeah, I'm gonna cast any French bulldog that's been in a movie or TV show as
like
that man.
a Jean Reno. Get a Jean Reno in there.
Okay.
I've got Neil
I was
Patrick
thinking
Harris as the middle guy.
Oh, Neil Patrick Harris. Either
Perfect.
that or like somebody with a rat face. Maybe that guy from The Bear.
Oh, Jeremy Allen White?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I was also thinking of a weird one of Jared Keeso, the star of Letterkenny.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh,
Could
nice.
possibly play that guy.
Yeah.
But I do like Neil Patrick Harris more. I think that's more on the money.
And he has to bring the youthful energy because I think he's younger than everybody else in this picture by
Yeah.
about 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, that mustache is glued on.
Yeah.
He's 13 years old.
We let a boy be our military commander.
What does the boy know about war?
So, I mean, these are definitely VIPs. You have two former French prime ministers,
look at
even
those
if one was
hats.
only on the job for about a month. And then you have two of like the highest ranking, like, French generals, military, part of your war cabinet, your Ministry of Defense or whatever they call it. You also have our
Walt Disney.
No, that's Penn Teller or Penn.
we have Penn Teller over here. His name is
It's Penn Jillette.
Penn Jillette.
His name is-
Teller's the
yeah.
other guy.
Leon Johu. We got good old Leon here, who's a leader of like French Workers Union.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the people, at least in France, fighting for 40-hour work weeks, paid time off, all of that. Seen as somebody who
One of the cool guys.
Yeah. Because, I mean, right now, the Nazis in Germany are trying to get rid of the French resistance led by Charles de Gaulle.
Also, it's socialism.
Yeah, and socialism.
They took care of that in Germany first, and then tried to expand it outward. Then we have Arlie Ermy over on the right.
We have back from the dead. I was thinking Joseph Pesci.
Oh yeah.
A really old Joseph Pesci
What about
in a
the
nice suit.
grandma from Napoleon Dynamite?
This is... Oh, I'll take that.
Or Mac's mom from It's Always Sunny in
I think
Philadelphia.
it's the same lady.
But this is Charles de Gaulle's sister and her
Oh,
husband.
shit.
No political power whatsoever.
No, just relation to power.
Yeah, just a relation to power, and they're like, "Well, we got your sister, Charles.
Fuck you.
Fuck you. We're putting her. We're putting her in the prison. Just give up your French resistance while you still can." And at the bottom of the bracket, with no sort of political power whatsoever, we have Jean Barota.
Okay.
All right.
Well, it
he
sounds like
was
he's
a-
the Commissioner General of Education and General Sports.
He eventually becomes the sport head of sports in France after
Okay.
this event. I mean, don't mean to spoil. He makes it through the siege of Castle Itter.
I mean, he better head the sports because he doesn't seem like he's good at playing them. He has the weirdest tennis swing, and the ball is in his other hand. I don't know if you guys noticed this.
He's doing the old
This
switcheroo.
is amazing because the angle of that
Oh,
racket
you
too
see,
is
I hit it
disgusting.
from this side
you hit it with the
throw it.
flat end, buddy. You don't hit it with the short end, the thin end.
I think he's getting ready to serve. I think this is him maybe winding up for a serve. He's called the Bouncing Basque. He was a world-renowned tennis star in the 20s, winning multiple... I don't think he won Wimbledon, but he competed in multiple Wimbledons, won some, Australian Opens.
French Open.
Heavily decorated.
Guys, this not to spoiler alert. I just did a quick Google because I'm at my desk. This gentleman lived until 1994.
Yes.
Yeah. 96 years old?
Yeah.
In 95. He was a month shy of his
Okay.
96th birthday.
Okay.
He lived a long, healthy life in support of the sports he loved and that community that gave him that. But as of
Also hilarious that he's playing in a beret. I mean,
Oh yeah, every picture I could.
That's part of the brand. That's part of the brand.
Every picture I found of him like actually playing tennis, he played in a beret.
classic.
He made it part of his fit. It's his look. It's what he wanted to do. But by the time World War II has come around, he's about 15 to 20 years past his glory days.
Oh, so he's like
He's like in his
45?
40s. Yeah.
okay.
He's in his 40s. He's still playing tennis and all that, but he's, the good days are past him, and, as with any sports player, he was popular enough to get into a VIP prison, but he's not exactly winning any tournaments or anything like that.
The Nazi officer who was running the Castle Itter prison just so happened to be a tennis fan, probably.
Just like, oh, we want him on our team.
Oh, send him to me.
Send him to me.
He was really
get some
vouching for him.
lessons in the courtyard.
Are you sure the tennis player? Yeah. No. He's he's really good at a lot of things. A lot of
The
good things.
bouncing basque. Get me the bouncing basque.
My serve is dog shit.
But John's
It's
gonna
the
pop
longest
up.
yard. It's just the longest yard where the prison
Holy
wants
shit.
that guy.
Let's see here. We can't fault as well, as we mentioned, cooks, repairmen, everything else like that. There are about 5 or 6 prisoners of war from the Eastern Front. We're going to start our story on May 2nd, which, if we got our timeline right, that is about 48 hours after a dead Hitler.
Okay.
Word has spread throughout any sort of high-ranking members of the Wehrmacht, which is your German army, as well as the SS, which is more of your politically minded German army.
Your super sports,
Yes.
as Chevy would call them.
Nice.
So everything is just crumbling around. They know the American troops are coming down, just sweeping through southern Germany. So everyone's basically, whatever you can pack, let's keep on regrouping. They moved the flag 50 miles, south, basically. Let's
Berlin
regroup.
was never the capital.
Yeah.
It's always been.
It's always been Munich, and then within
It's always
20
been
minutes,
Stuttgart.
oh no, it's always been northern Italy, actually. So on the 2nd, you can assume lots of desertions are happening within the German army at the time. All over Germany on both fronts. People would rather desert or surrender to your Western forces than to the Russians, because you're not treated too well in Russian prisoner war camps if you're German.
You weren't treated too well if you were a Russian soldier.
No.
They didn't have a lot of resources.
They didn't
at the
seem like they
time.
were the best place to be in prison.
Also, one side ideologically matches up a little bit more with the Nazis than the other side.
That is
so
very
who's
true.
going to be more favorable
That is very
to
true.
you?
So there is some infighting within Castle Itter itself, and one of its top commandants mysteriously dies on the 2nd.
What?
And this is something where it's all hearsay. It's all secondhand knowledge, because none of the prisoners really knew what happened.
He died mysteriously of 14 tennis racket smacks to the fucking back of the
14
head.
serves to the back. He was unarmed. Yeah, it's assumed that he was killed by the other SS leadership, that he wanted to just raise the white flag, let Americans know, hey, we're not a fortress, don't bomb this.
We are capitalists too.
Mickey Mouse, we love the Mickey Mouse and blue jeans. And he was disposed of. So tensions are already high at Castle Itter, but things are still running normally, even with the German government and military structure in crumbles and only cascading into absolute dust. I mean, we know from hindsight that the war is going to be over for the Germans in about 6 days anyway.
Hey, man, the Japanese Empire is going to keep fighting for another 35 years in the Philippines.
Even after Germany surrenders, they're still fighting in Prague and Czechoslovakia and all that, mostly on the Eastern Front, for another couple weeks after an official surrender. That's just how things go. They're not on Japan's timetable where they can just hide in the woods for 30 years.
And sometimes you have to go pull a man out of retirement home to tell him, please,
Please, you're
tell
his
this
commander.
guy to stop.
He'll recognize you as his officer.
Could you please tell Japanese Rambo to quit it?
I would watch that movie 10 times in one day. Japanese Rambo.
Yeah. The poor people in the Philippines had to live it.
Yeah.
There was a literal boogeyman out in their forest.
He was just, I guess, their Baba Yaga.
Yeah. So you can already tell tensions are pretty high, and the SS officers at Itter Castle itself are kind of deciding in a clash sense: do I stay or do I go?
Wow.
Or is that the Ramones?
No, it's
You
Clash.
know, you...
It's the Clash. But
Yeah. And I didn't even immediately pick up on the pun.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Clash, you know, like it's a clash of like ideologies.
Yeah, it was multiple
no,
layers.
It's also the punk band.
Let's take a moment to soak it in, boys.
Yeah, no, it's layered like an onion.
It's like a fucking ogre.
But they are doing a big do we stay or do we go, and for at least on the 2nd of May, staying is what they decide to do. So
where else are you gonna go?
Well, they have communications
to the German
from their
capital
castle.
of Rome. Duh.
They are. There have been orders to essentially, like, they know some of the German army is around there. There is a ruler. There is a ruler that Germany pops up for, like, that week.
Oh, they have a second Der Fuhrer?
Yeah, they have. He sold enough packets of cookie dough to be the Fuhrer for a week.
He got the inflatable couch,
the big pencil,
the PlayStation, the big pencil, and he got to be Fuhrer for a week.
But yeah. So on the 3rd of May, the next day, the officials at this prison basically send his name is Shukovic. It's spelt like Kukovic. Which is the only way I can remember it.
Fantastic.
But he is a
great. I love this.
Yeah, he's a Yugoslavian handyman. He was captured. He was part of the Yugoslavian communist resistance.
Played by Noel Fielding.
I have him as David Dalmatian or whatever, the actor we can't pronounce. Polka Dot Man from your Suicide Squad.
Nah, I've never watched that dog shit.
Shukovic here has a special job, as many do. As his handyman repairman status, he has to go into the nearby town of Wargol, which is about 4 miles away from the castle, to get supplies sometimes.
Uphill both ways.
And he goes like, oh yeah, no, I need another run. We need some more, we need more wires. We need more AA batteries. And what the Germans don't know is he has a note from the prisoners that say like, hey,
we're here.
Hey, we're here. And they tell our boy Shukovic here, hey, go find Americans.
So Kukovic has a note up his butt.
He has a note up his butt.
If I may editorialize this story a little bit.
Yes, he has a note. He has a note, not physically up his butt, but we don't know for
liberties,
sure.
But I accept
I'll take it. I like it. I like it. You have him asking, why did the note have to be so long? 2 pages? 2 pages?
In my butt?
You just gotta tell him we're here. You just gotta draw a
pockets.
map.
I can put them in pockets, guys. No, it must.
Does it have to be my butt? I know I'm Kukovic, but
so this guy, like any dad, he goes out for a pack of smokes
it never comes.
and never comes back.
Classic Eastern European
to
dad.
the perspective of the rest of the prisoners who gave him that note, they don't know if he's dead.
Everyone's bummed.
Everyone's really bummed.
The Nazis are bummed because, like, fuck, he ran away. And I've turned it on and off again, and I don't know what else to do.
We need Shukovic so bad right now.
Will not work.
But what Shukovic does is, over the course of a day, he knows to avoid Wargol, which is that nearby town, because it's had roving bands of the German army as
Just
well.
Lousy with Nazis.
Yeah. Is that like what you describe, like it's infested by Nazis?
Yeah.
It's lousy.
It's fucking lousy with it.
So he avoids it. He goes wide left and goes down river to a different town that's about 10 miles away. Where he runs into some Americans, some of the fighting force, as we saw in an earlier photo. Some Yankees,
A band of brothers, if you will.
Yeah, one of those arrows that's stretching down into the panhandle of Austria. And he goes, oh my God, you wouldn't believe it. Like, we got French prime ministers. We got Charles de Gaulle's sister there. There's a really good cook.
We've got a guy who can teach you how to serve like none other.
Yeah, and this kind of gets on the horn to the Americans in the day, and they're like, okay, well, we're gonna mount a rescue mission. And this rescue mission it gets like 5 miles down the road and immediately has to turn back because they run into some remnants of the German army and have to fight there. And they're like, okay,
They see
we'll just
loose swastikas in the trees. They're like, oh, Germans were here.
Oh my god, there's just sausage wrappers everywhere around here.
I just see
Some
Steiners,
broken glass
somewhere.
boots alongside the road.
Just a bunch of tipped over steins.
Yeah.
There's Lederhosen.
There's a trail of pickled cabbage.
Just
leading off
pickled
to-
cabbage everywhere. I see some really hard to operate on automobiles. Like,
I am smelling bratwurst. Do you guys smell bratwurst?
but regardless, the word is out to the Americans. The note that may or may not have been up his butt was not very detailed as to like how to get to the castle. So they just know that French VIPs are all somewhere, and the world's dopest tennis star are all somewhere.
I mean, to be fair to
nearby.
them, they may not have been aware of how to get there. Like they got kidnapped.
Yeah.
They may not
True.
know. They might not know the lay of the land.
But
No,
I love
no,
to imagine
but-
that the Americans are just like, well, the war is coming to an end, guys. Do you want to go on one final adventure? Do you guys want to go
And
to try
everyone
to
goes-
find a castle in the in the Swiss Alps
And that's
or
the
whatever?
thing. Everyone's totally on board. It's just
World
they
War
get,
II spring break.
Yeah, they get hung up, partway there, and that rescue mission is completely called off.
Yeah, they're only French.
So, I mean, meanwhile, back at the ranch, nobody knows about this. Not your German SS officers, not your prisoners. They think Shukovic is just dead in a ditch somewhere, or he might have just run off and found the Americans himself and left them all there. They don't know. I think there is a little bit of a language barrier. I don't think anyone else speaks Yugoslavian.
Wow.
Is that a language?
I don't know
Or-
if that's a language or whatever dialect of like Serbian.
Yeah.
Or what have you. And that could also be the reason why the Americans don't exactly know where to go, even if this guy ran from there.
Even with the butt map.
Even with a butt map, and even with this guy trying to like draw it with his finger in the sand. Yeah, like, no such luck. So the 4th of May comes around.
Okay.
And our VIP prisoners,
It's May the 4th be with you.
it's May
Yeah.
the 4th be with you. Our prisoners wake up and their doors are unlocked.
Whoa.
They go out into the castle. No Nazis. No Nazis whatsoever.
Nazis.
Like the cover.
Oh, fuck, they got raptured.
Oh no! This war's got interesting all of a sudden. No, all the cupboards are open. Some snacks are gone.
Oh, fuck.
It seems
There's
like
a
they've
note on the
taken.
dining room table that says "Gone on vacation. Here's $20 for pizza."
Here's 15 Deutschmarks for pizza.
Yeah. All the SS troops and everything that were manning this prison have decided to flee in the night.
Good choice.
And to take whatever
Smart.
weapons they have with them, but still, because this place has sort of been a prison for a while or a stockpile for a lot of weapons, like they can't take everything. So now you have that wonderful comedic scene where you just have a bunch of old people be like, well, fuck, who's going to protect us? And then you have maybe, your
You got our tennis player being like, me.
me, so
As he cocks a racket.
Do, do, do,
Soccer
do,
blue.
do, 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 do.
So they quickly discover that they need to find a way to get word out, just in case Shukovic didn't get the word out himself. They need to find a way to get a hold of Americans.
Just in case they got cuckovicked.
Well, ooh,
Hell yeah.
because there's roaming, and it's like roaming packs of wild dogs. There's roaming bands of like disenfranchised Nazis just rolling around, and if any of them find out that somebody has essentially left the door open on this castle, somebody's going to swoop in and try to, you take those prisoners as some sort of bargaining chip. Maybe an opportunist sort of deal, or maybe, just to move them somewhere else and keep that.
I
Or
mean,
the-
if
you
you're
know,
on
they
the
figured
losing
that we don't
force, it's like, get any kind of bargaining chips you can. So, like, when
Yeah.
this shit is going to hit your fan.
Or, I mean, if you're already fucked, might as well just, spring break in a castle
Yeah.
until it all comes to an
Does
end.
it have
Yeah.
a pool?
Oh.
Is there a pool at this castle?
There may not be pool. There
There's
are
a river.
some grass.
I saw there's a river down there.
There's a river down there,
They gotta-
down a pretty steep incline, but no pool that I'm aware of. It is fun finding, like, on the left here, I have an internal image of, like, looking out, and it's not this front gate, it's somewhere basically behind the walls in there, but not so many pictures inside this thing. But it is a museum now, mostly to the event at hand.
I mean, all castles have become a museum effectively, unless...
Well, because they're costly to keep
Yeah.
running, so it's like, well, shit, if we can get tourist money out here.
Basically, the government's like, just holding on to it. It's like, well, let's try and lure, like, tourists to spend money here.
I am
So,
seeing the cutesy Wes Anderson movie, though, now. Like, you wake up one
Yeah.
day and all these dumb Nazis that have been, like, hassling you
Like some
are just
Devo
gone.
song is playing. and
Gwyneth
it's just-
Paltrow playing Charles de Gaulle's sister.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and they just find a cache of weapons, and like maybe one person knows how to shoot, maybe a couple of the Eastern Front prisoner of wars know how to shoot, but they're like, oh, we are absolutely fucked unless we have somebody help us out. So they get on.
Who does
They have the high ground,
Schwartzman play in
Anakin.
this movie?
Schwartzman's coming up.
Okay.
Kukovic?
No, he's not Kukovic.
All
Kukovic's
right.
been cast as the polka dot man.
Kukovic's already been cast as the man that you don't know.
I don't believe in him.
So
I'm being gaslit.
During
Dear
their-
listener.
they during their their year or two that they've spent at this castle, there's been a lot of SS officers kind of in and out, and this is their words. One of them was extremely friendly to them.
That's such a
was
good
nice to
character
them.
for a movie. Is
Yeah,
the moral
that's
objector
all this
or
is gonna be.
whatever. Conscientious
it was-
objector.
It was an SS officer who had been injured, and he was hiding out and waiting for Americans to come, and he's got his white flag ready and all that stuff. But they reach out to this officer named Kurt. This is him on the right. So yeah, we have our grumpy old men on the left who are not very eager, dressed in their Sunday best. That's another thing about these. These are prisoners, but they've been living in the same suit for about 4 years.
One of them was in
essentially.
pajamas.
Yeah, one of them.
That's
one
a
of them was
smoking
taken
jacket.
straight out of. This is Hugh Hefner. this is straight up Hugh Hefner. But no, they find this wounded SS officer named Kurt, and who agrees semi-begrudgingly to be like, okay, I'll come out to the castle. Like, I at least I know how to fire a weapon, and we'll wait this out till the Americans come. And as the fourth keeps moving along and all
As
that,
the fourth is with them.
as the fourth is with them, they decide we need a plan B ASAP. We need another Kukovic. Who wants to be our next Kukovic? So they find our boy Andreas, played by an Andy Serkis,
Nice.
as the Czech cook. And they go, Andreas, there's a bicycle downstairs, but like go find some Americans and bring them back here. Now, Andreas hasn't been out of the prison as much, not as much as a Kukovic. So he doesn't know that there's such a bigger Nazi presence in that
Didn't even
town
know
of
there was a
Wargo.
river. Rode right into it.
Yes. So he goes straight to Wargle. He's seeing a bunch of like tragic shit where like these roving bands of like SS soldiers, which they're not like, we're not talking like platoons of thousands of soldiers. We're talking groups of like 5, 10, 20 of them. Are just dragging people out in the streets if they have like a white flag in their house or an Austrian flag, and just shooting
Or
them
if
on
they
the
have
spot.
food.
Yeah, or if they have food, they're taking it. It's absolute chaos, infighting between groups of Nazis, sort of a deal of like what to do. So Andreas is just he's bobbing and he's weaving on his bicycle. He's doing what he can. He comes around a corner and he thinks he's absolutely spotted by Nazi troops. Like out of everybody he could have run into, he runs into Josef Stepp. Actually named Josef Gangel here on the right.
Joey Steps?
Joey Steps. Joey Steps is
What a
going to
smile
be
on
another.
that guy.
He was commanding a good sizable number of troops. Definitely bought into the ideology early on in the war. Became disillusioned by it within like the past year. Once it finally clicked for him that Germany is not going to win this war, He kind of played along, as they were moving along troops further south away from Germany down into Austria. He immediately sought out like the Austrian resistance. And, under threat of his own death, because, I assume the Austrian resistance has been double-crossed many a time. But within only like a span of 2 or 3 weeks before this story even starts, he becomes best buds with the leader of the Austrian resistance, because he's telling him like everywhere that everywhere that the Germans would go, or bridges that they were told to bomb, and send somebody out there and like disrupt that, make sure they're not blowing out bridges.
Is that him hanging out with Walt Disney down there in the left corner?
That's not him hanging out with Walt Disney. Actually, one of these might be him. I forget, but I know this is a German trooper as well as like Austrian resistance fighter, as well as these two in the top left are Austrian resistance fighters.
On some sort of technical, by the looks of it.
Ooh,
oh yeah,
maybe.
On the ground, I think.
It could be guns on the ground, too.
It could be guns on the ground. It could be guns on a wagon.
Mm-hmm.
That
the Austrian
guy on the top
special,
left,
just
that's
push a
gonna be
wagon
Vince
down the
Vaughn,
hill.
for sure.
Der Gunswagen, as they called it.
But Joey Steps has basically made great strides to where he is running this area as part of the Austrian resistance. Like, showed up on the job, essentially. Defected, showed up on the job like 2 or 3 days, weeks ago.
I was going to ask, is he still a uniformed?
He's not a uniform. He's not a uniform.
He's fully defected. Okay.
He's fully defected. And along with him are the members of whatever like troop that he had. To better the chance of him and his men, to wait things out until the Americans come and just come out with a white flag. But Joey Steps basically goes like, oh fuck, so that's where they were keeping the French like prime minister. Like, he has no idea of what was going on at Castle Itter. And upon hearing this, he immediately goes, well, we can't wait. Hop into my whatever like Kampfwagen, hop into my little like German like car that we stole as we defected, and let's go meet some Americans. All right, gang. I know I'm going through a lot of names and a lot of instances, but
hey, as long as there's no test at the end.
But a lot happens on May the 4th be with you. A lot. We cover a lot of ground on May the 4th just to get all our pieces in place for the following day. So Joey
Cinco de Mayo, when everyone has tacos and tequila.
Yep. I would put Jason Schwartzman. I would put him as good old Joey Steps.
Controversial,
here, possibly.
But what about Joel McKinnon Miller? Good old Ed Baldwin from For All Mankind.
Yeah, you could.
If we're casting by off of looks.
If we're casting off of looks, sure.
I'm fine with casting
I love
for
all of them,
performance.
though.
So we have Joey Steps, some members of the Austrian resistance to back him up at the very least, and we have our boy Andreas, all heading north in a little Kubelwagen, which is basically your German equivalent of a Jeep.
Okay.
So we got all of our boys in a Jeep heading north, diving, dodging, dipping, trying to get around any sort of like SS roadblock that's been put up, trying to avoid any sort of like artillery fire as they're just making their way. They just know the Americans are coming from the north, so that's where they head. They make it about 8 or 9 miles down the road and find some American tanks just waiting in a city, a couple miles.
Shermans idling.
Just some Shermans idling, some dudes having smokes. They're waiting to essentially be relieved by other Americans coming down. And the person waiting to clock out is a good way to put it. They're just kind of like, hey, we made it as far as our order said to go, and
wouldn't you know it, if you've ever worked in a restaurant, you close at 10. What happens at 9:55?
Oh, somebody shows up with the top secret. Somebody shows up with a party of 4 with the coolest fucking mission you've ever heard of.
Wanting you to liberate multiple French prime ministers.
Yes. As well as the dopest tennis star that anybody's ever heard of. They run into another character in this story. We have Jack Lee, who is a tank commander and basically commands about 5 Shermans, each of those being about 5 guys. burgers and fries, as well as, you have your 10 or so guys on the ground, sort of a deal, to just support and to be able to go places.
A Kukovic in their own right.
Yes, to be able to go places that a tank can't and be able to scout and what have you. So it's a fairly sizable force that's waiting for them there, but nothing too exciting. It's not your military movie of the cavalry's here, but it's just enough. It's just enough of a force where it's like, yeah, you got some machinery. Germans shouldn't bother us.
I think 5 tanks is more than enough to take a castle inhabited purely by French prisoners.
Yeah.
At this point,
and enough space to get those prisoners out. Mm-hmm. Just have them right on the side, right along the back. Some sort of protection. That's what they're looking for. So Jack Lee basically throws down his bobby. He throws down his cigarette and goes like, "Sure."
God damn it.
God damn it, sure. Where are they at? And thankfully Andreas is a lot better just with directions to get everyone back to the castle. And so Jack Lee and his group of Shermans set off a few miles down the road. 2 of the Shermans end up turning back because there's something that they need to protect a little bit further out east. They get a little further down the road.
They found 2 very sexy ladies in lederhosens with hands full of steins of beer.
Oh my god!
And they thought, we can't let this fall into the wrong hands.
8 jugs between the 2 of them. Who would have thought?
But we also have to deal with what Joey Steps was trying to prevent, and that's bad bridges. Bad bridges that have either been blown out by Germans retreating or things that are wooden bridges that were there to facilitate cart and buggy, and not so much, 5 tanks in a straight line.
Maybe a car.
So we have, on the left, we have our map. This is where they find good old Commander Lee here up in Kufstein. And as they make their way all the way down to Wargle, by the time they get to Wargle, they only have 1 tank left. Like, they go across a particularly flimsy bridge that they're like, we're probably not going to be able to come back over this bridge. Everybody else find a different route into this town. And by hook or by crook, by the time we finally get our boys to Castle Itter, we have a grand total of 1 tank, 5 extra American boyos, 1 very plucky teenage member of the Austrian resistance who just was like, this sounds cool. And, I feel like I, might have a better shot of surviving if I'm with some Americans.
You're just there, man, like,
yeah,
we're gonna take over the Nazis.
I'm a 22-year-old. I totally know how to shoot.
Give me a gun.
Give me a gun. As well as good old Joey Steps and a couple members of Joey Steps Wehrmacht decided to
That's a great
also
band
join
name.
in.
Joey Steps in the Wehrmacht.
Joey Steps in the Wehrmacht is you might run into some places that you can't tour in.
Definitely not Germany.
But all together with our French prisoners, we end up with about 35 people.
Wow.
It seems
and
like,
one
once
tank
again,
between all of them?
Between all of them, we end up with about 35 people all together reach Castle Itter.
Seems like enough to liberate a non-occupied castle.
Well, enough to occupy it until reinforcements come and can get these people out.
Mm-hmm. But it's not like you're fighting your way there.
Well, funny enough, on their final leg between Wargle and Castle Itter, they run into some roadblocks that are being set up by some SS troops. They don't know how large that army is, but they take care of them, and they assume okay, if there's any Germans in the area, if they don't already know Castle Itter is unoccupied, they're gonna come there to try to get the prisoners. So we need to put this baby into 4th gear, and we just need to haul ass there. They get there at about 10 o'clock at night on the 4th. and are immediately met with disappointment from the French prisoners.
What?
Because here they are thinking that as the
We
story,
were expecting a more handsome rescue.
yeah.
Is it too
and
much?
this is all-
Too much to assume?
one tank?
For all of
One
us?
tank?
For moi?
5 guys? Germans? You're having Germans rescue us? Oh, we
How
thought
many cigarettes do you have?
0!
2.5 cigarettes between the whole group.
We will not survive the trip home.
It was a cigarette siege. That's what it was. Starving them out of smoke.
The siege on Cigarette Hill.
Our small force. I mean, we're talking. I mean, still, a tank is nothing to scoff at, especially your late game Sherman, which essentially has at this point an artillery cannon strapped to it
And a flamethrower sometimes.
and a flamethrower. Well, not in this theater.
Yeah, sure.
Not this one. Not the Besotten Jenny. Not the
All
tank
right.
in question. But our boys make it all the way back to Castle Itter in hopes of radio, like getting communications back up, finding a way. Like, okay, find your roads. We know where the castle is. Here's our coordinates. Come get us. And by the time they reach the castle, like almost all communications in the area has been cut off.
Oh, no.
They
Yeah,
know German. They know the Jerry boys are on the move, straight to that castle. They just do not know when. So, as the 4th comes to a close and midnight approaches,
Hey, you can't have those
We-
images in a Christian manga.
I know, I forgot to cover these ones. I painted over the other ones. But this is our one side. We've got Kurt, our friendly SS officer, which is a weird thing to say. We got Joey Steps.
And everyone's favorite character, the castle.
A location can be a character
It
tale.
can.
In this bottle episode, yeah. You could theoretically in the movie adaptation of this keep it all within the prisoners of the castle and whatever they know is the story you're telling. You got a bunch of stuffy French politicians. You have the world's dopest serve in a beret, one tank named the Besotten Jenny, some warmock German troops that just want to go home at this point, just want the war to end.
Look at how sad.
And
so sad.
You got some plucky Americans. I think these are German prisoners of war down in the bottom left, so nobody's having a fun time. They aren't the boyos. I'm surprised I could even find pictures of some of the people involved here.
And little did they know that spring would change the rest of their lives.
Is that when like Baba O'Reilly starts playing? Yeah. But we get this wonderful image. These are our sides in this conflict. This is something that only happens 2 times in World War II that is recorded in history of German soldiers fighting German soldiers while also allying with
That's crazy. That's an
The
interesting
American
Allied
troops.
forces.
It's one of 2 times that happened. The only other time it happened, it was like German prisoners of war essentially defending themselves from an attack with American troops. But this, you have yourself a whole intercontinental breakfast of just everybody's there. This is the reason why I'm telling this story, because this is just weird. This team matchup is weird. These teams are unbalanced. What's going on? But it doesn't take long into the 5th of May. Good old Cinco de Mayo.
Arriba.
Cinco de Drinko.
Until somebody starts seeing some Germans spying around the outside.
As they are wont to do.
As they are wont to do. A small recon force of SS troops are spotted in the area. Some even take pot shots at the tank, but realize they park the tank basically on the bridge going into the main gate. So in order to get into the castle traditionally, you'd have to go around a tank. But they only man it with like a machine gunner and a radio guy, just so everybody else can defend from the castle itself. But yeah, early on, very early in the morning, the siege has effectively begun. Germans radio out to good old Georgie boy here.
Whoa.
Who is...
Is that a technical?
He's a bad guy. No, that's called an artillery piece.
Yeah, okay.
I mean...
It's
You could
technically
ta-
a
you-
technical.
It's technically a technical. It's on wheels. It's a cart that you push. But as opposed to the 30 or so people, a good third of them being essentially prisoners of war, You have about 150 to 200 Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
And with them, they have about 3 artillery pieces. Some of them are smaller, like this 30-some-odd millimeter gun. And I think they have one gun that's like an 88 millimeter gun, which is essentially a tank cannon that you push around. And you can't really do a whole lot with. Your defenders are basically relying on Castle Itter being a castle and defendable.
They have the high ground, Anakin.
they have the high ground in the area. They can
How
see
many
out
Star
far.
Wars can we insert into this?
Very, very uneven matchups. And as people are going around, a lot of Captain Lee, the American commander of this, is basically like, I don't want any guns in any the French prisoners' hands. And eventually he's convinced by them.
They're too gay to be able to shoot a gun.
But they convince him. They convince him that, hey, you need as many people, manning walls and looking out, and we're not just going to hide in the center of the prison and wait to see what happens.
Except for him, he's going to be serving volleys downhill.
Except for Baroda, he's just going to be thwack, pap, onto a wall.
He's just going to be whipping rocks downhill.
We need you to hit back every grenade that comes over this wall.
Smart.
Not what's happened, but we can take liberties in our movie adaptation of this.
Kakavik, we need you to sit on every grenade.
Oh, poor boy. So early on, as day starts to break on the 5th of May, in sort of a concentrated fire from around the castle, the first thing that's immediately taken out is the tank. They use all those artillery pieces, just keep on hitting the tank. The machine gunner and radio guy get out of it, basically, uninjured, and now it's just a very expensive, big piece of machinery that's blocking the gate in.
It's a door now.
But yeah, between all the artillery fire, they're definitely putting some holes in the castle. As much as the your prisoners and everybody inside, they're doing what they can, but it's definitely obvious they have about enough ammo to last them the day, and that's it. If this siege goes on long, if they can't get any sort of help or anything like that, if it goes on for more than a day, they're going to be out of ammo. And if they're out of ammo, then that's it. They
ate all of the ham out of the Lunchable. They're halfway through the cheese.
They've smoked the half cigarette that was discarded somewhere outside. So yeah, as we reach about noon, this is what the map looks like.
Ooh, wow.
We have
That's a siege, all right.
We have about 150 to 200 Nazis, each in groups of about 5 to 10, all pretty much moving their way, surrounding the castle, trying to secure at least visual on any sort of exit, anything like that, as well as using their artillery pieces and these triangles to essentially make sure that if anything weird's going on, they're going to shell that part of the castle. Things are looking fairly dire throughout the afternoon. A couple people are injured by gunfire. No fatalities yet. Until about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Good old Reynard here, our guy who was prime minister for about 4 weeks.
It's only appropriate he be the first victim.
Well, we're getting to this, Taylor. I'm setting this up. We're getting to this.
Oh, is he the hero? Did he?
He's firing his gun outside of a window, and who would you know it? Joey Steps.
Wow.
Joey Steps sees the flash of gunfire come out from the forest surrounding the castle, pushes Reynard to the ground, and takes a bullet for him.
Shouldn't have done it.
Former enemies, even weeks ago. Former enemies, complete enemies, Joey Steps talked at Hitler youth marches in 42, 43.
Wow.
Saves Paul Reynard from a bullet that he takes and is immediately killed, making him the only casualty on this side.
No?
For everybody. I don't mean to spoil things, but he is the first casualty on the side of Operation Free These Fucking Prisoners. As the afternoon goes on, one of the Wehrmacht soldiers of Joey Steps here definitely he defers. He jumps like 20 feet over a castle wall and runs to the SS officer.
He's like, I'm a Nazi again.
I decided I'm evil again.
Things aren't looking so hot. So what ends up happening is after the tank got taken out, which was their last hope at any sort of radio communication with the town of Wargle, like they have no way of communicating, at least to even the Austrian resistance, to like send somebody to draw attention away from this, so we aren't just absolutely fucked in the next couple hours. They formulate a plan. Between the SS officer Kurt, between the American
up the side of a hill, a man with a map sticking out of his butt emerges.
It's like,
so can I do?
It's Kakovic.
No, they formulate a plan, and that plan
is to launch tennis balls.
Is to have him serve a fucking message to the neighboring village.
John Baroda. They go, well, we could have somebody run to Wargle. There's a chance that the rest of the American tanks have shooed out whatever Nazis are in Wargle, or the Nazis that were in Wargle are now surrounding the
They're
castle.
here now.
Yeah. So if we can get somebody to Wargle and let the Austrian resistance know, the cavalry will be on the way. And John Baroto goes, I'll drink that beer.
Yeah.
I'll be that man. You know, he's looking over like the castle walls and like, I'm 47. This is gonna suck.
Reckon I'm the most athletic person in this castle.
This is really, really gonna suck.
Tightens down his beret, cocks his racket.
Oh, you know it, bud. So at some point in the afternoon, mind you, broad daylight, but there is some forest area around this, so he has some cover. This boy bobs and weaves, makes his way across the river, makes his way through like one small town, two small towns. He's said to avoid a different Nazi roadblock that was being popped up. This man is solid fucking snake.
Oh my god.
He found a cardboard
box. How
box.
the hell did you get Adidas into this? Like, that is insane. That's an insane generation.
This is the only picture I've found of John Baroto without a beret, and he's much, much younger. This is him advertising in some magazine, I believe in the 20s.
Interesting. That very much feels like a 1950s haircut.
Yeah. Well, the French have always been ahead of us.
I guess so.
But yeah, a French tennis star essentially sneaks his way past 200 Nazis in the middle of a firefight, runs 4 miles to the next town. I mean, I gotta show you all because it's something. It's
wow.
It's just.
We're going on a field trip.
We're going on a field trip, gang.
Hopefully all of our listeners had their moms sign a permission slip.
Oh my god,
and
it's
packed a
okay.
bag lunch.
If it looks somewhat like your mom's signature, we're good. You're going on this field trip.
Taylor's mom brought the Oreos and orange juices.
From Castle Itter to Wargle, it's 4 miles.
All
and
right.
this guy is dodging.
Work.
He is dodging Nazis the entire way, essentially.
Dodge Nazis, pretty good band name.
I don't think they gave him any sort of weapon, anything like that.
He didn't need one. He had his racket.
he just had his racket and a bunch of chutzpah.
And a half a pack of smokes.
But he makes his way all the way to Wargle, in which he finds some American troops and essentially goes like,
get off your asses.
Yeah, put out the smokes, boys. Like, we have a rescue to make.
Stop playing baseball, gentlemen. It's time to go rescue some people.
And in true Hollywood fashion, as they're running low, they have discarded most of the weapons because they have run out of ammo. They're down to just like pistol ammunition.
The last 2 crackers.
You have like
Lunchable.
30 people. Yeah, somebody's just munching on the last. They're licking the inside of they're getting the ham water out of the Lunchable. Wouldn't you know it? Dressed up in an American uniform, looking as proud as could be, is not Kakovic.
Oh, damn it.
It's not Adolf Hitler either. It's
Is it Rodham? Did he get a
no, it's John
promotion?
Baroda. It's our tennis star.
He's in an American
They
army
swagged
uniform.
him
Yeah,
out, that's why?
they're just. Yeah, they're just like, yeah, we got an extra jacket. They threw a jacket on him, like threw him on like one or first or second tanks in the row, and just like, yep, no, you just point us the direction of roads we need to take.
Congratulations, you live in fucking Iowa now.
You've been deputized.
You're an American now, bud.
But yeah, in true heroic fashion, seemingly when all hope is lost. Because these people back at the castle don't know. They're just like, I think we just sent tennis superstar John Baroda to his death.
Ah, fuck.
Much like a Kakabik before him.
Do we ever know what happened to Kukavik?
No, he disappears from history.
Oh, shit.
Completely.
He's still wandering the wilderness.
He's still
around
looking
Itter.
for the
Running
Americans.
He just keeps meeting Austrian people and he's pissed off about it.
No, I need the Americans. He's walked his way to America.
I've had this note in my ass for 50 fucking years.
He's like Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
I had this map in my ass.
Your father's map. But yeah, the cavalry comes swiftly. It's a rout. Once you get a couple pieces of mechanized armor on the road, and 50 or so American troops who aren't who are just full bore on knowing where they need to get. They punch a line through the German defenses around this castle. The SS troops around the area surrender. There's I think there's about 70 to 100 killed, but 100 of them surrender just straight up, including their commander, George McAngry Nazi, we saw a little bit earlier. This is a footnote at the end of World War II. This is not important. This is garbage time in World War II, essentially. But lo and behold, over the span of 3 days, taking multiple escapes from this castle, whole lot of run into the next town, whole bunch of biking and dodging and dipping and diving away from Nazis, whole bunch of defectors. It's our heroes, our good old French prisoners get rescued, and they're on their way back to France by the 10th. By the time they touch down in Paris on their airplane, the war's essentially over in Europe. And this is where we start getting some photographs. This is where the majority of the photographs of Castle Itter in this event take place, where you have these Wehrmacht troops and American troops who have been fighting against each other for years. And just, wouldn't you know it, the turn of events, everyone's just trying to protect some of these prisoners and get them out of a castle. And the fleeting tail end of a war. And we can have an image like this, where everyone just bobbies all around.
Bob,
Realizing we both really love capitalism.
We both ain't capitalism great.
Hey, fuck those Russians.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, these German boys are probably so fucking happy that the Russians didn't reach, because I believe at the time that while all this is going on, Russia's pushing into northeastern Austria at the point.
Hopefully the guys who also love Henry Ford are the ones that get us.
Hopefully so. I do like this guy though in the left. He looks like he can just mow down. He can Kobayashi some bratwurst like nobody's
that
business.
guy can chew on steel. He's got some chompers on him.
That man, in the blink of an eye, can make a plate of schnitzel and spätzle disappear.
But front left, is that Seth Green?
Oh,
Yeah.
I was going to say Zach Wood from The Office.
Also good. Also a long-faced person.
We need... Yeah, Zach Wood would be a good cast in this. It's just some American. But that's it. That's this story. This story is former enemies joining up for some small common cause. And not even really an important one. But a common cause nonetheless.
It's a great story.
And it's so interesting to me to find some sort of, in your garbage hours of the European theater, to find something that kind of, you see the humanity outshine. Like what you imagine when you're like, oh boy, can't wait to watch a World War II documentary. Can't wait to see that same stock footage of dogfighting over France and stuff like that. But to just have like this small human story of like a bunch of bickering old people trapped up in a castle,
French people so insufferable that they're just abandoned by their Nazi captors.
I can't take it anymore.
That's
leaving.
why they left.
I'd rather be in a fucking gulag than this.
They are so snarky and mean.
They
are so rude.
fast and so vicious. I can't take it.
I get it.
Yeah.
As someone who's been to Paris, I get it. Yeah. I'd also rather go to the gulag.
But yeah, I mean, as for afterward, I mean, everybody but Joey Seps makes this out okay. Wounds heal. Jean Baroda becomes sort of your commissioner of French sports. Even speaking at, I believe, the 100th Wimbledon in the 90s. I think it's like 94, a couple years before his death. Joey Seps is remembered by having a literal street named after him in Wargle.
Okay.
And sort of lionized in your... he's always kind of included within your Austrian resistance memorial. Says, hey, even one of theirs thought we were up to something good.
Well, and also, you have this like region, these two countries that are just like, well, let's move on past that.
Yeah.
And someone who joined the resistance is a great person to lionize.
Yeah.
I would love to hear the story of this from the perspective of the person on the right outside of wherever it is, that has seen
Wargle?
So many people just staggeringly, just brokenly walking down the street. And they're like, "What the fuck is going on? Why are there so many goddamn people walking down my street randomly, looking for Americans?
That man
what
looks
the fuck
like a
is
handyman."
It's like that family whose their field was the first, one of the first battles of World War II past Fort Sumter, and then Grant and Lee signed the treaty to end the Civil War in their after they had moved, they signed it was their kitchen in which the peace treaty for the Civil War was signed.
They're just we just want to have our beans and eggs.
We fucking moved because of this shit.
Or the bartender in town,
but yeah,
who has seen the rabble-rouser Nazis come through and make clean work of everyone's joy, and then the Americans come in, and then you see a world famous tennis player come in looking for the Americans, and yeah.
Bartending's hard work because you kind of have to be a social comedian anyway for the tips, but you're getting put to extremes here. Of hot dogs, blue jeans, and freedom, or der Fuhrer and 1,000-year Reich.
That's a hell of a read. You got to really read the room.
Did you hear about the Fuhrer for a week?
I think he'll be better.
I think he's up to some good.
I think we're on the men, boys. It's only looking up.
Looking up.
But yeah, we end this story on just a breath of peace. A breath of peace at the end of a conflict that claimed so many lives. A conflict of men and ideologies. A conflict that just the scars of the 20th century are still felt today all around the world. And it's so interesting to me that you can still find nuggets like these stories where it's I care about these 10 people locked up in a goddamn castle, just bickering at each other as to who was the better prime minister.
And in which general was secretly a boy.
Yeah.